Candyman was directed by DaCosta and stars Yahya, Abdul-Mateen II, Tiona Paris, and Colman Domingo, and follows the story of a painter that moves into a high-rise where Cabrini Green once stood, and soon learns about the urban legend of Candyman, and inspired by the horrific acts of this story, he begins to paint images of Candyman and racial violence. And soon it brings Candyman back into the forefront as people begin to once again say his name 5 times in the mirror to summon him. Guys, I'm sorry that this review is a little bit late. I was waiting to see this movie with one of my best friends, and I could not wait to see this movie. This is one of my most anticipated films of the year. I am a huge fan of the original Candyman. I love that film. It's one of my favorite horror films of all time. I love how it deals with urban legends. I loved how terrifying it was, and I loved the unique feel and score of that film. And so I was excited to see what this film could bring to the table, and I was really impressed with what I saw. Nia DaCosta is definitely the star of this film. The direction of this film in particular is truly spectacular, and it really evokes what that original film was and brings something new to the table to discuss. And I think it does such a great job of that. I was really worried that this wouldn't feel in line with the original film, but it definitely does, and it feels like an expansion. The cinematography is absolutely stunning. This is a beautiful looking film. The shot compositions and the way some of the kills are shown, and sometimes not even shown, are really stellar. It just has a great atmosphere too, and the music itself is really good too. Nia DaCosta is definitely a star in the making in terms of directing. I have not seen any of her previous work, but I am excited to see what she can bring to the table farther down the line. I know she has a new movie coming out very soon. She's directing the next Captain Marvel movie, The Marvels, which is really exciting because I think she can really do a stellar job. But yes, this is absolutely amazing for a Black woman, and especially that this is the first film by a Black woman to reach #1 at the box office, and that is really something to talk about. But also, I really love the acting in this film all around. I thought that the performances, for the most part, were all really enjoyable, fun, and I found the characters genuinely very likable. Well, some of them. Some of them are kind of scumbags that you want to see die and you cheer for their deaths. There's always going to be that in horror films, I feel like. But I really loved Yahya Abdul-Mateen's performance in this as Anthony. I love the places that this character goes on this journey of discovering this urban legend and also discovering something about himself as he completely goes off the deep end and goes insane, and it's very well done. I also think that Tiona Paris, who plays his wife in the movie, is absolutely fantastic. She is really this character's rock, and she does such a great job. I love their relationship. It's so loving, it's so cute, and it's really part of the heart of the film. I also love how it develops things that happen in that original film. They do a lot of, I'll call them flashbacks, more or less, where they basically tell different stories of what happened in the previous film, and also kind of Candyman's origin story. And they do it through this really unique thing of using paper figures to kind of tell this story, and you see kind of these hands taking these paper figures and moving them around, and it's a really creative way. They could have easily done flashbacks like that to the original film, but they didn't, and I love how they deepen the original film in a lot of ways by kind of changing the story a little bit, because urban legends take on a life of their own. The original story may not exist anymore and has changed and evolved to make something else. I also really love the idea that they bring to the table, particularly with Colman Domingo's character, who tells the story of Candyman. He mentions that there have been multiple Candyman throughout the years. It's not just one person. And to him, Candyman was this particular person. And it's a great way of developing something that I think that the first film only really touched on, and they go full on with this film talking about racial violence and that these Candyman were victims of racial violence. And I think it does such a great job of that and establishing that. And it makes the mythos of Candyman, I think, a little bit more richer. Even though I love what is in that original film, I love this stuff too. I also love how it talks about the gentrification of the black community, specifically with Cabrini Green, and I think that is very well established here. This film has a lot to talk about in such a short amount of time, and I haven't even gotten to talk about the kills and all that stuff. So let's talk about that. I love how subtle this film is with its violence and its kills. There are some very violent acts that happen throughout this film, but a lot of it is done in shadow and a lot of it is done off screen. Now, for some people that are really looking for something a bit more violent and scary, I feel like they may be a little bit disappointed. This film doesn't really dwell on the violence. A lot of the stuff is more implied than actually shown. But it's the angles and the cinematography and the music and the atmosphere that really adds to it, because there are some really horrific moments throughout the film. But I can say that I was never really scared while watching this film, but I was always entertained. I thought this film did a great job of balancing horror while also balancing some comedy. I thought there was some great comedic beats throughout the film that really helped break some of the tension away, but it never detracted from the story at all. I also love, again, how it connects to that original film, particularly with bringing back certain characters and introducing something about Anthony, our main character's character. And it was also really great seeing Vanessa Williams return from that original film. Her scene in particular, she has one scene, but it is very well done and really a very emotional scene for somebody that has seen the original. I actually cried in this film. And I don't usually do that with horror films, but it was very satisfying in that regard. Now, in terms of negatives I have with the film, now, when I finished this film with my best friend, we kind of discussed some of our criticisms with the film, and we both agreed that we loved the film, but a lot of our problems come in the third act of the film, and I think a lot of that comes from the fact that the film is just way too short. At 93 minutes, that's including credits, it just doesn't have enough time to really develop all its ideas into a cohesive whole. And I think that really shows in the third act, where we get some bizarre character shifts that weren't necessarily set up earlier on, and they are interesting because I can see what Nia DaCosta and Jordan Peele were trying to say, and what they are trying to say is really brilliant, but I don't think there was enough time set up here, and it was rather confusing, and it kind of made a lot of the third act fall flat for me, but the ending itself was really good and was something that I found really memorable by bringing back a familiar face and just, it felt right for the film itself. The very, very ending, not the entire third act, which I found kind of disappointing overall. I also found that the score was rather disappointing too. I love the score to the original film. I think it's one of the best horror scores of all time, and this one is good. You can see hints of that original score throughout this film, but it just doesn't pack the punch that that original film does. But overall, guys, I did love this film. I think it does have some flaws with it, but I think it makes up for it with some great atmosphere, some great characters, some fun moments, some great horror, and just building upon that original urban legend. And I think it just does such a great job with that. I love Nia DaCosta's direction. I cannot wait to see how she handles the Marvels, and also I can't wait to see what she does next, and I hope she continues in the horror direction, but I'll pretty much see whatever this woman makes. So anyway, guys, with all that said, I'm going to give Candyman an 8 out of 10. I do want to say that I prefer the original over this film, but this is still a really good film nonetheless, but I think it does falter in a few areas near the end. But still a good film nonetheless. But anyway, guys, with all that said, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and stay positive.